Hello, hello. How's it going? I'm talking to no one yet. I say this every class because I always start talking and there's no one yet. It's fine. I'm just cleaning my glasses. Oh, look, there's someone here. Yay. I got a sign. My friend, who I'm sure most, if not all of you know, Alana, got me this awesome sign from Etsy. I should probably have looked and paid attention to who it was from, like what vendor it was from, but I'll post a picture and I'll include the vendor if I can. But yeah, she got me this awesome sign for our quarantine creatively classes. Isn't that awesome? I love it so much. I don't know if it's gonna live on these things or if I'm gonna figure out a way to like permanently affix it to my pegboard, but signage, we're official. All right, so we're gonna be painting this little guy today. It doesn't have to be square, as you can see. This is not square. It's a little bit more abstract, so I kind of like that vibe. We've been doing a lot of like still life stuff, and so I wanted to do more of like a landscape vibe for this one. So the colors you use are really going to be up to you, but if you want that like fall aesthetic, yellows, reds, oranges, stuff like that. I think I only used yellow, red, and white, and then there's a drop of blue for the background. So you will need a drop of blue, but I'm going to pump out a whole bunch of yellow and red. And we do need white, lots and lots of white. Well, I guess not lots and lots, but a decent amount of white. Okay, and then a drop of blue. It really doesn't matter the shade of blue. I just want like, I just need like a little bit of blue for our sky, which isn't really sky. You'll see. Let's see, what's this guy? Ultramarine blue. Sounds good to me. I'm on a quest to use up all of my littles, like all my little paints before I buy more paint. So, but of course, like the major ones go first. So I just have this like bucket of teeny tiny paints with colors that I'm never going to use for these classes because like, do you guys want me to tell you to go buy Portrait Pink? It's like a my nude fleshy color. I'm not going to tell you to go buy this. So yeah, but I'm going to start making more art to sell on Etsy and stuff. So my goal is to get through this before I buy any more. We'll see how that goes. I definitely need black for this painting, but also in life. I think I might be almost out of black. Let's see if I can find my little. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a little bit of blue, lots of yellow, lots of red, and we're going to need some black for our tree trunks. Oh, goodness. This is not the black I used. This is like solid. What happened to you, friend? Did I not close you? Okay. Where did the black go that I used? I'm super prepared, as you can tell. Oh, there we go. This was Mars Black, which apparently I did not close properly. It feels like it's still mushy, but it feels like paste. It's not liquid anymore. I don't know what happened. So I have Ivory Black, which is probably like just on the gray side of black, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. Okay, paints are pumped. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna get my background brush. I'm gonna clean him off. Ask me when the last time I changed my water was. And I'm gonna grab some white paint and just a drop of blue. And I'm gonna make a really pale blue. And I'm just gonna go down the center, like in the middle here, because I just want to be able to visualize. And now this is going to mostly be covered up, but I just want to be able to say, like, yes, this is where the break in my trees is going to exist. And I just want it to have a little bit, just a little bit of that cool tone of the blue, so that when we kind of blend over it, it just kind of changes the tone of that part of the woodsiness. And I'm going to stop like maybe 2/3 of the way down. It really depends on where you kind of want your ground to start. I'm going to say like right there. And it doesn't really matter how streaky it is. Like I said, we're going to be covering up like 96% of this. So it's really just to kind of frame our forest. Okay, so now I'm going to wash my brush off. And I'm going to lay down some ground cover. Again, we're going to be covering a lot of it with leaves and trees, but we just need that base of color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some white, some yellow, and a little bit of red. And I'm going to like roughly mix it so that it's still like really streaky. And I'm just going to get like a base of orange down here. Now, if, let's say, you're not wanting this to be as vibrant, maybe you want it to be like more of the like brown, crunchy leaf kind of vibe. If you mix just the smallest amount of blue into this, I'll show you. So I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see. So vibrant orange with white, yellow, and red. And then if you want to tone it down, just like, not even just for the ground, for the whole thing. Like if you want to have your, the vibrancy toned down a little bit and have it be more of that like rustic vibe, just adding a drop of blue really like mutes it and kind of adds a little bit. It almost looks like you added brown, but you don't have brown. If you do have brown, you can absolutely just use brown. But I do like to play with tone like that sometimes. And I like when they kind of both exist together. So I like the dimension that gives. When I say dimension, I don't know if I've ever like explained what that means to me. And what that means to me might mean something totally different for other people. But for me, dimension is kind of when you have multiple tones so that one pops forward and one drops back, and maybe there's something in the middle there too. It just gives depth and dimension. So it doesn't always mean that it has to be black and white and shades of shadow and highlight. It could be a bright and a muted, like a jewel tone and a pastel. It's just like something is going to fight for your attention, for your visual attention there. And I like that. So would adding a little yellow ochre work? Is yellow ochre kind of like my raw sienna? Is it like a peanut buttery kind of color? Like a rusty yellow? Is that what your yellow ochre looks like? Then yes, that would be absolutely fine. Honestly, any warm tone paint that you want to use will work for a fall painting. So whatever you've got, I'm a big fan of not wasting anything. So whatever you've got will be fine. I have not gone in a very long time. I don't even know. I have to check and make sure if they're still open with all of this pandemic stuff. But there is a art supply store here, which the name is escaping me. But it's awesome because they employ all, I believe, adults with like developmental delays or disabilities. And it's like an art consignment shop. So it's like a bunch of artists donate, kind of like you would to Goodwill, but they donate their unused or excess art supplies, and then you can go buy it. But it's also like a nonprofit. It's awesome. It's in Nashville. I'm hoping that they survived this pandemic. I should probably look into that. Not that I would be comfortable going myself, but yeah, it's awesome. So also take a look for places like that possibly around you, if they have any art supply consignment stuff, because then you'll get things cheaper and you'll be supporting a good cause, and possibly even if they have employment opportunities like that, you'd be helping to support folks in your community. Yes, it's a little lighter than raw sienna. Yeah, then you should be fine. You may not need to use as much white, perhaps, if there's already some white in it. But yeah, so I have all different shades going on here. Mostly because I can never judge how much I need for anything, so I always just mix too little and then I have to mix more, and it's never the same color, but that's fine. It's gonna drive me nuts that I can't remember the name of this store. Let's see if I can Google it. SMART. SMART. It stands for something. What does it stand for? Yeah, Smart Art and Craft Supplies is proud to employ adults with intellectual disabilities on our sales associate team. Our sales associates process donations, stock the sales floor, clean the store, and assist customers. So yeah, I do think that they have management outside of that, but everybody there has always been super nice. What does SMART stand for? Anyway, I'm getting distracted, but you can absolutely look them up. I don't know if they deliver. They're pretty small, but. Okay, cool, love it. So now what we're going to do is for our trees, and I know I say this pretty much every class, but it's all about layering. Literally, I mean, that's honestly what all of our paintings are about. But you're gonna want to get your smaller round brush, and it doesn't matter what size really, it'll be just like dependent on what size canvas you're using. I've got my big Spencer brush here that I'm going to start with because I want to cover more area first, and then when I go back in to do my more details toward the foreground, I'll probably use a smaller brush. Would they deliver to Connecticut? I honestly don't know. I don't even know if they would deliver to me, and I'm like 30 or 40 miles away, but I have to look into it. Oh yeah, Caitlin, you would love it there. Yes, definitely look into that. Even if it's not necessarily the nonprofit that these guys are, just like an art supply consignment is awesome because it prevents like unused toxic materials from going into the environment that may have otherwise just been thrown out. And you can also get stuff really cheap. Also, I highly recommend if it's safe to do so in your area with pandemic restrictions, Goodwill always has art, usually, like those really not super attractive 80s paintings that were like up in doctor's offices and now they've maybe renovated and donated them. Look for signatures and make sure it's not something of value, but if it's just something mass produced, paint over it. Like they are always so much. You can get giant paintings at Goodwill that are either mass produced or done, for those really large like hotels and stuff like that, and they're just not trendy or attractive anymore. And as long as there's not of value, just paint over it and use it like it's a plain old canvas. I've definitely done that before, but absolutely make sure it's not some like secret fortune that you've stumbled upon first. Those are my favorite stories from Antiques Roadshow. Antiques Roadshow is one of my absolute favorite shows. And I love when people are like, I got this at the thrift store for $2, and then it's worth like $35,000. Okay, I digress, as per usual. So I'm going to start layering in my leafy texture. Now, I did not paint this whole background blue because it is my intent that at least everything on this side, the left and the right sides, are going to be covered in this mottled leafy texture. If you want something a little more sparse, you might want to paint the whole background blue, but it's not the look I'm going for. So I'm going to start with red. I usually like to do dark to light when I'm doing these like mottled colors, although sometimes I'll do dark to light and then I'll go back and fill in some areas out of order. I'm going to start with red, and I'm going to like make sure to concentrate the red up in the corners of my canvas first, the upper corners. And it's okay if there's some space showing, because we're going to fill this in, and it's absolutely okay. Even if, I know this is like what I've said is like a cardinal sin of painting, even if a little bit of your canvas shows with this one, when you're all said and done, it's fine. When I say a little bit, I'm like, if little bits like that poke through, it's fine. Nobody's going to know that that's not painted. You won't really be able to tell. If you're someone like me who's like, but I'll know, then when we go in and do our like highlight layer of some white paint, you can just dab a little bit in there. But don't be too concerned about making sure there's efficient coverage here. Okay, so I'm just kind of dabbing my red all along the left and right sides here. You don't want to create a red rectangle and a red rectangle. You want it to be more organic because it's trees and leaves. So bring some over your blue here and maybe here. Don't feel like you have to go all the way up to the blue every single time because we will have many more opportunities for colors and coverage. So try not to like block yourself into a shape. We're not creating shapes, we're just covering some area. If you are getting like chicken feet instead of blobs, if you're getting like that, which you can't really see, but if you're not getting those full blobs, you don't have enough paint. You need more paint. We don't want it to be like visibly raised and thick because there will be so many layers happening. We don't want it to get too muddy. But just make sure you are saturating your brush, and then you should be able to get like a decent amount of coverage without refilling. But as soon as you start to get this like chicken feet texture, you need more paint on your brush. Now you can go up to and over your horizon line, your ground line, because leaves don't just stop there. That's good for a first layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a skinnier brush. If you don't have a skinnier brush, if you only have one round brush, that's fine. You're just going to press really lightly for some of these thinner lines. But we're going to start to put some trees in there. And now I'm going to take my skinny brush. He's clean and dry. I'm going to grab the black. And the way that perspective works is that things get smaller and lighter as they go back in your perspective. So what I'm going to do actually first, scrap that black for a second. I'm going to take my skinny brush and I'm going to grab some red and just like mix it into whatever pile you had for your ground, just to make like a slightly darker shade than your ground. And we're going to put in our little path, just like visually. It's not going to look like this when we're done, but just we're going to lay out our path so that we know like where the perspective is leading us. That would be helpful. So I'm going to stick with like kind of a middle vibe, and I'm just going to like swoop it around. And then it's going to get smaller, like I said, as it goes further back. So when you swoop it around, it's going to get wider down here at the base. And these lines are not going to stay there like that. We're going to cover them, but we just wanted you to get that initial visual of wider, closer to like your plane of vision, and then smaller as it goes back. That kind of helps create that feeling. I'm not going to wash my brush again. I'm just going to take some black on this brush that has this like darker reddish orange on there. And I'm going to put in some trees that are like far off in the distance. So they're really skinny, and I'm going to press really lightly, like so. And I'm going to leave a break for now where this path is, but I'm just going to get some really skinny trees happening here. And as you move down this line, they're going to kind of follow that line, and they're going to get like thicker and darker. I'm not going to do the whole forest like this, but I just want some like right along the edge of your ground cover, and then some that are like following just to like further emphasize our perspective. And they don't have to go all the way up. You can go up as high as you want. And they don't even have to be like fully realized trees. Like you can add some branches. We've done trees before, so you know that they're supposed to look like armpits and not elbows. So you can add some. But we're going to be kind of painting over this, so you don't have to be too concerned. Okay, so now you can, I'm going to bring some up here a little. Okay. And now if you see, like this one got real dark and then you don't really even see where it goes, that's fine because we're going to be painting over. I do want to get some that are kind of back here, and I'm pressing like so lightly. I know you're looking at this and you're like, it's a mess. Can we slow down? Absolutely. However, you're about to see why this really doesn't matter. It's going to be such a ghost effect that it really truly doesn't matter. You can press really lightly, and you can put as many of these lines in here as you want. You don't even have to know where they're coming from. we just want there to be like a ghost of this tree. I'm not even like giving it proper branches. I'm just kind of throwing some really skinny, really light lines up there. Because then what I'm going to do, and the reason I'm moving fast is I want this to stay a little bit wet even though we're using very little paint, is I got going back to my background brush, brush. And you can grab just a smidgen of blue and white, just a little bit of that combo. And I'm going to water it down. So I've got white paint, I've got a drop of blue, and then some water to make it nice and thin. I'm going to scrape the excess off my brush, and I'm just going to paint over it. And if you grab some of these red guys, that's fine. Like, I want to pull the color in. I'm not going to go past my ground, though. So you should still be able to see some of your trees through it, but not a heck of a lot. And if you're grabbing a lot of this red and it's turning a little purple, first of all, that's fine. But if you want to tone that down, you can go back into your like yellowy orangey mixture and bring that in. It'll kind of like brown it out a little bit. But we're just going for we're trying to create that haziness. So it might take a couple of really thin layers of watered down paint to create that haziness. So I started for the colors, Becky, I started with just white and a little bit of blue, and then I watered it down. And then some of my red was still wet, so in going back and forth, it grabbed some of that. And I like that because I think it's just going to add to the haziness of it. But if it was becoming too kind of purpley, because you had some blue in there, you can always mix a little bit of that orange in, and it'll just like tone it down and make it more brown-ish. It's dragging the brown and the black. Yes, that's intentional. Make sure it's watered down though so that it all just kind of starts to blend together. Like you can even, I just wet my brush and I kind of went into my white a little bit, and I'm just kind of going over it to make sure all of the colors blend together and are just generally smushy. I can guarantee you each and every one of you is overthinking this right now. Look, I'm not even painting in the same direction because I just want it to be smushy. We're going to be putting in many more trees and many more layers. So we just want the hint of, oh, there might be trees off in the distance. Like, see, there's like a couple of very faint lines there that you can kind of see, but not too crazy. Okay. So we're going to let that kind of dry, and we're going to go in and do some of our bigger trees now, which again, if you look at the sample I did, you can hardly tell that they're trees. This is very abstract, guys. So yes, it's, you know what it is, but it's not like, okay, we're gonna paint this tree and we wanna make sure it has bark and detail. No, it's lines that your brain is interpreting as a tree because I said that this is a fall abstract scenery, you know? If you like turn it upside down, I don't know what the heck it is, you know? I'm always a big fan of turning art upside down. I'm not quite sure why, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm going back to my bigger round brush. I'm gonna grab some black or brown, whatever you're using for your trees. And remember, things are bigger, they appear bigger when they're closer to you. So the biggest tree is gonna be the one that's kind of closest. So you can start there. And when I say tree, we're really just, I watered down my black because I don't have a lot of it. We're gonna make something that's a little bit wider at the base here and just kind of pull it up. And it could like fade off. It doesn't have to be fully solid because we're gonna cover up most of it with leaves. And then I'm going to put another one that's going to be a little thinner right over here. And my ground was still a little wet, so it's pulling in some yellow. That's fine. Maybe. Okay. And then maybe this side, there's a little bit less real estate, so maybe I'll only put two big guys on this side. And you can have them go all the way off the canvas. You can have them stop somewhere. You can give them little like branches. I'm going to do a couple of those later. Let's say, where you put your trees is totally up to you. Mine are like fairly evenly spaced right now, and I'm kind of trying to curve them just a little bit along my my path, but we're going to be adding some more little vague trees in there in between, so the spacing really doesn't matter much. And then if you can see, let me show you this guy again. So there's more like really little vague trees kind of in here. When I say vague, I mean they're like really light, just kind of scattered in between, and they're not as intensely black. Now you can water down your black to get that effect. You can mix it with some white. You could do both. If you just press really lightly, even with the plain old black, you should be fine. But I'm just going to press really lightly. I watered down my black and I grabbed a little bit of the like white mixture that I had for this concoction. And I'm just going to sprinkle in some trees of varying widths, but all thinner than these trees. And they're going to start further back because we wanted to create that depth, right? So the big chunky trees are the ones that are really prominent, and then these little skinnier guys are just lighter and they're further back in your forest that you're creating. And if you do one or two that you don't like, or they get really thick on you and you're just like, this doesn't look the right proportion, it's fine. We'll just cover it with leaves when we do the leaves. And you can even do these trees, like you can bring them all the way up here, even if they don't match up with anything down here, because we're going to be really going to town and covering all this up. I would now at this point recommend doing some little branches. They're armpits, not elbows, so don't do any right angles. But we just want to break up some of these vertical lines just a little bit. And again, no one is really going to be able to check the origin of these branches. You just want a little to mix it up. If you've been staying very far away from this middle section, maybe think about bringing some of your extra little branches a little bit closer. Because we do want it to feel like everything's kind of converging over that area. Okay. So we're going to let our trees dry just a little bit. And we're going to work on our little path here. So I'm going to make this a little bit more of a vibrant yellow situation. I do, however, need to mix some white into my yellow because my yellow is very thin. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and forth across my red lines. So it's going to help to camouflage that, and we'll camouflage it even further when we add our leaves to the ground. So it's okay if you can still see your red path lines. But I've just got some yellow and some white mixed together, and I'm just going to make some horizontal lines that are going to get lighter and lighter as I go back. So I'm just adding more and more white as I go back. And I'm going over these red lines. I'm not going to go too far over because I do want to maintain that shape. But we'll cover the rest of it up with leaves when we get up to that. And now what I want to do is going to feel a little weird, but I want to blend out that area where the ground meets the like foggy sky vibe. So I'm going to take just a smidgen of that like blue gray we've got here and mix some white into it. And then pull some white up for, oops, that's too much paint. We're blending, so we're bringing the darker blue-gray down and we're bringing the white-yellow up and just kind of blending those two together. Because I don't want there to be like a harsh line of where my ground becomes my hazy forest. So I'm just kind of whooshing that. And again, it's a mess. Like, look it up close. Like, that's a mess. But I'm going to cover it with leaves, so it's fine. So brighter yellow up at front, and then it's going to get more and more white as it goes back. Okay. All right, now it's leaf time, guys. So, like I said, dark to light. So we did a bunch of red as our base, and now I'm going to mix some orange. So I'm going to grab some yellow and red and a smidgen of white because I want to keep this pretty dark for now. This is a really pretty orange. And I'm going to start to smush my leaves, just like I did with the red. But this time we're smushing on top, so it's going to start to break up our trees. I'm going to start to pull it across. Now I don't want it to go fully across this haze, but I'm going to start to pull it across, particularly the top, because we're creating this like domed effect. You may need to add more white if you're like not able to differentiate your orange enough from your red. You probably need a little more white. If your trees are still wet and you're grabbing some black, that's fine. In fact, I'm gonna purposely mix some black in because my black is dry. I'm going way beyond my horizon line here too. So we're just smushing. We're going to be smushing like pretty much the rest of this class. All different colors though. So now we're smushing some orange. Like I said before, if you're mixing your colors and you run out and you have to get more and it's not the same, that's fine. We want all sorts of different shades happening here. So I've definitely remixed this orange 6 or 7 times already. And as you're smushing, remember that you want to start to fill in these gaps, but not this big gap. You want to start to fill in these little gaps over here wherever you can see your canvas through. And also that while you're keeping that in mind, also think about the fact that we're going to add more colors to this. So don't feel like you have to cover every single gap with this orange. And in fact, right now, I'm going to actually go back to some red. So I'm not washing my brush off. I'm just going to use whatever orange I have left real quick. And then I'm going to go back into some red. Because what I want to do is with this orange red on my brush, I'm going to, now you may want to do this with a smaller brush. So if you have a skinnier brush, you could do that. But I'm going to add some leaves, some smushes around my my trail here, my little path. Now they would get smaller as they go further back. So that's up to you if you want to use a smaller brush. I'm going to do that for my like very detailed parts of it later. I'll show you what I mean by that. But oh yay, Amy, I'm glad you're enjoying this, or that you're liking what it's looking like. So we're just kind of camouflaging that line that we painted earlier. And it's okay to be painting in front of these little trees. In fact, I'm going to be using leaves like this. We did this one of our very first classes with the tree with the snow. We kind of covered up the bottom of the tree trunk with a snow mound. And I'm going to do the same thing with leaves because nobody ever wants to figure out how to do like roots or anything like that, or figure out what that looks like, especially on such an abstract piece. So I'm just going to start to smush some reds and orange into my ground area. Now you can also take some more red and put it up in here if you feel like you need it. Now that you can kind of start to see what things are looking like. If you feel like, oh, there's this part of this tree that I really want to cover up, red is going to be your best bet because it's the darkest. So you can go back in and cover up some parts of your tree. You can bring, if you stayed really conservative and you kept your red really close to the edges, and now you're looking like, you don't want it to look like there's a red stripe and an orange stripe and yellow. Like we want them all to kind of commingle. So you can add some more red in there if you want. We didn't really bring our red down past our land horizon line. So if you want to bring some red down there. And the reason I'm going so quickly is because you can't, with smooshes like this, you don't want to think about it. You don't want to be counting them. You don't want to like worry about what pattern you're making. You just want to lay the color down and move quickly. Okay, now I'm going to do some yellow. So I'm going to wash my brush, and a lot of this orange and red is still wet. So the yellow is not going to stay pure yellow. It's going to become all different shades of yellow and light orange, and that's awesome. That's what we're going for. That's why I like to do the dark to light, because it'll always just pull on characteristics of the color before it, and that's kind of fun. So I'm going to take some yellow and some white, because again, as much as we love a nice vibrant yellow, it's not going to cover anything or show up without the white mixed in, usually. And I'm going to start with the yellow. Now, what I will say is I'm going to leave my corners, like the tops and the corners, kind of like a vignette. I'm going to leave that darker. So I'm going to avoid putting a ton of yellow there. I'm going to focus the yellows and the lighter colors more to the front areas here. And also, I'm going to show you, we're going to like push them back. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But for now, I'm just focusing my yellow. And there's going to be less of this because I don't want it to become fully yellow. We just want to kind of break up all of the darkness that we've had so far. So I'm just adding some yellow. And you can even like add that into your trail if you are wanting to kind of tone down that red as you go further back, because like I said, things get lighter as they go further back. So you can absolutely mix in some yellow, and we'll just kind of tone it down. Keep in mind, you do still want to go down. I'm not like covering up the very bottom of my big trees, but even though we didn't necessarily paint a million tree branches, we are under the assumption that these trees have a million branches and we want to kind of adorn them with leaves. Okay. No, I'm going to put some on the ground too because I feel like I didn't do enough of that. Because keep in mind, whatever's up in your tree is going to end up on the ground because leaves fall. So any colors that you utilize up top should also be featured down toward the bottom. I am going to leave just some plain old ground because we do want to be able to literally and figuratively ground the painting. So you don't have to feel like you cover the whole thing with leaves or else you won't be able to necessarily separate that. My yellow is really lemony. Okay. I mean, I think mine is too. But if you just mix a little bit of the orange in, that'll probably tone it down. And we're going to be mixing in some white tones too. But if you mix a little orange in and make like an in-betweeny color, like a mac and cheese, it'll probably look a little mac and cheesy. But we're also going to make like a softer yellow right about now. But yeah, if you wanna, if your colors were not blending enough, like if your colors are dry by the time you start putting in the other color and you're not getting all those in-betweeny colors, feel free to make them yourself. You're welcome. Okay, so now whatever's on my brush, I have like a in-betweeny, like that mac and cheese color I was saying. I'm just gonna grab a whole bunch of white because I want this to be very light, but I don't want it to be pure white. So I'm just kind of mixing it into my yellow-orange kind of combo, but it's still mostly white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus this in this little easy area first. But I'm not going to cover the whole area because we do want that haze to pop through. But I do just want, and actually I'm going to switch to my skinnier brush because I want these to be really small and look like they're like way far back. So if you don't have a super skinny brush, just press really lightly with your regular round brush. Just use the very, very tip of it. But I'm going to go in with my skinny brush and I'm going to do some really light. And now this color is like, how do I describe this color that I'm using right now? It's like a very pale creamsicle, like almost like a my nude because I am like the color of mayonnaise. Let's just be real. But I'm just using this to kind of show that, hey, there are leaves back here. They're just in that haze and we can't really see them. And I'm just putting them here first. We are going to be using this color elsewhere, so it's not like it's going to, right now, if you're doing it, you're like, ooh, why does it stand out this much? It's not going to stand out this much forever. But I just want to add a little bit of texture back here. And this is also going to be how you work on that haze quality, that hazy quality, and also the perspective. So what you're going to do is now that you've put some of this lighter color in this area, you're going to work that color out and back, but there's going to be less and less of it as you go out and back. So the highest concentration is where we just were, right in this area. And I'm going to pull it back over some of the existing leaves. but I'm going to have it be like much more sparse as it goes back. So lots of light dots, less light dots, less light dots, very few light dots, kind of like that. Okay. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Got a couple more layers to go. I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to leave this light-ish yellowy, orangey, pastel-y kind of shade on my brush, and I'm going to grab some black. I know, this sounds scary, but what you're going to do is if you've at this point, now actually a fair amount of my tree is still showing through, but let's say you've covered a lot of it. Maybe you've been doing bigger smooshes and you can't see your trees anymore and you want to add just a little bit more detail. So with this like pastel-y white color on your brush, you can grab some black and you can just kind of drag some of these skinny like ancillary tree branches over some of the leaves that you're doing. Again, this is just creating depth. So we're showing that, hey, there are some branches that are even closer to my line of sight that I can actually see more distinctly. If you've covered up a whole bunch of your actual tree and you're wanting to go back in with some more black and cover that up, you can. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of these. I just like to kind of break up what I've done, particularly on the ones that are like on the trees that are the closest, because those were the ones that we would most likely be able to see these branch details. Okay, so now I'm going to go over with my smallest brush that I have, or if you're using the same brush, just really pressing lightly to get smaller dots. And I'm just going to go through like literally all of my colors one more time, just one more quick run through. So I'm going to go with red, and I'm going to maybe add some, if there's any area that got like a really high concentration of the lighter colors and it's kind of standing out, you can use this to just break it up. I really do like to use it on the biggest trees because, again, you would maybe see a little bit more of these fine details of this tinier leaf. And you may not even need this. You may have like been really into what you were creating and really specific about where you were putting your leaves, and maybe you don't need to do this layer. I'm also going to use this opportunity to pull a couple of red leaves like closer to my haziness, because we didn't really get to do that. Mostly just to like break it up and have it not be so perfectly like gradient like. And you can, if you end up putting leaves in front of those branches that you just created, that's fine. Again, that's how trees work. Like there's leaves in the back, there's leaves in the middle, there's leaves in the front. So that's why it requires so many dots, so many. And then you can go through with an orange shade again if you feel like you need some more orange, maybe. Maybe a light orange and break up some of this red. It's really up to you. Again, I'm not doing nearly as many dots with this second pass through. I'm just kind of covering up areas that maybe didn't get the coverage I wanted, or that maybe are leaning too light or too dark for me. Like if you squint at it and you could see like, oh, this one area is really light. With the exception of, like I said, we're keeping this area here mostly red, mostly dark, because we want to pull our attention into the painting. Here's the thing. I'm pretty sure most of you guys follow me on Twitter. I called out because it's not just me. Like I know this has been a thing that I think has been proven. Everybody gets mad at Twitter algorithms when it comes to pictures because it is designed, well, let's just be real. Facial recognition in general is designed to pick up the lightest. That's just how the software was written, probably because the software was most likely written by white men. But anyway, I digress. Your eyes do hone in on the lightest area of anything. Even when you go outside to look at scenery, your eyes are going to look for the lightest parts first. So we do like to, in painting and in art and even in photography, it's called a vignette when the outer edges are a little darker so that it pulls your eyes in naturally to the lighter area. So that is, in this particular case, what we're doing, and it is, in my opinion, acceptable. Because it's just an aesthetic thing that happens. Okay. So now I'm just going to pay a little bit more attention to what I'm doing on the ground here because it wasn't before. Now I'm going to add some bright white. I know I said I didn't want it before, but I do want just a little bit of that pop of, just a little highlight. So I cleaned and dried my brush off, and I'm going to grab some white, and I'm going to, again, focus it toward the middle, but you can have a couple pieces, past this area, but you can just kind of kiss, and they can be like fully in this middle section. Even though we can't see our trees here, we know that they're there. And I'm just adding a little bit of bright white to help pull our attention. You can spread this white out a little bit. So again, if you want to use it to fill in an area or cover up a leaf you don't like, you can absolutely do that. You can also pull in some more streaks into your walkway here. I'm going to cluster some of these bright white here, kind of where my walkway and my background meet, mostly because I want to kind of blur this. So I'm using the white and it's kind of mixing with whatever is going on. I just want to blur this. I don't want there to be like a distinctive, oh, I see where that starts and stops. I just kind of want it to mush together. I'm not going to do a ton of this white because I don't want it to look like snow or anything, but I just think it's always nice to have a little bit of contrast. But that's it. After you have done some highlighty leaves to your content, that's it. We're done. Sign your artwork. I haven't reminded you guys to do that in a while. You could do that with the white on your brush right now. Bottom corners are traditional. You can grab some red if you're wanting to I'm always a fan, particularly of on abstract paintings, of like taking a step back and just squinting at it, and seeing if anything like stands out as incongruous. It's a big word. When you squint at a abstract, especially when it's like this, when it's just kind of supposed to be a general wash of color, if anything is too specific, it will stand out. So I squinted at this and I was like, wow, this is really bright. So I'm just taking some of my orange and just kind of swooping it across to tone it down. But that's always like a last little step I like to do. You can trail some leaves because honestly, would the leaves purposely avoid the walkway? No, there's going to be some leaves on the walkway. So you can put a couple in there. But that's it. Squint, sign, and post it on Twitter. I hope you enjoyed this. I think, yes, it was like officially announced today that we will be doing a quarantine creatively during the festival next weekend. It's Festaboo. It's something that Nerds and Beyond is hosting, and they're partnering with Random Acts again, and it's going to be super duper awesome. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be painting on a pumpkin. If you do not have a pumpkin or cannot obtain a pumpkin or even a fake pumpkin, you can always paint on a canvas or paper, or, oh, you know what would be really cool actually? A jar. If you have like a glass jar, you can paint on it, and that would be a fun Halloween decoration if you were looking to use it for Halloween, or just a life decoration. If you're planning to do that, I would say you probably would want to get some Mod Podge to seal it afterwards, and it would not be something that you would continue to like eat or drink out of. It would just be decoration. But yeah, that'd be fun. So next week, our class is not going to be at 4 Pacific. It's going to be at, I don't remember. I think it's 7 or 7:30 Eastern. But the schedule for Festaboo will be posted soon, and I will remind you all. But until then, have fun and be creative, and I love you. Bye.